Hello and welcome back to War Thunder, and today we have the Duck Talks number 53, and this special episode is about my goal being, reached 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is amazing and it's really satisfying. But it's of course not the only topic that I want to cover in this Duck Talks. I have no idea how long it will go, so yeah, let's see how it goes. So first of all, I wanted to talk about the 10,000 subscribers, which is amazing, as I just said. Then how to YouTube, a few tips and tricks, just some basic ideas. The naval testing, the golden opportunity, which I haven't forgotten about. Then the first April Fool's event. Then another huge topic will be the Chronicles of World War II, with the loot boxes and the prices and so forth, and what it means to me personally, which vehicles are worth going for. Then also another huge topic that I really want to talk about is the German players, the German player base, the Tiger and the Tiger 2 problems with the power creep, the fake matchmaking, long-term solution, and also a quick term solution that everybody can do. Then also maybe mentioning a bit of Subnautica here, then maybe an art contest, I'm not quite sure. Then also a little bit of Autobahn story, which might interest some of you. And then also at the end the questions from last Duck Talks at the end of the video as usual. So for 10,000 subscribers it was really requested for a face reveal. The thing is, no, because I know what you little fuckers are all about, you just are waiting for getting my hands on a picture of me to draw a swastika into it, or to make the memes getting unleashed. I know you guys, I know you're just desperately waiting to get a picture of me, and I can live without that. So I'm already ugly enough, so I don't need another ugly swastika on top of it. No thanks. So yeah, 10,000 subscribers. Let's begin with this. It's an insane number. Just to give you an impression how I see it, I am a small YouTube channel that makes it for just the sake of it, or as a hobby, because I have fun of it. I like the impressions that I get or the comments from people, the interaction with people worldwide, and I try to help people. A lot of you appreciate that and get some nice comments back, and I also get some not so nice comments back, and I read them all, I listen to them all, and I take them serious up until the point that the comment is written in a style that makes me believe that it's not so serious, or it's just somebody being utterly frustrated, or he just hates me. I've read through tens and tens of thousands of comments throughout my over 600 videos that I did so far, that I know how to handle it. It's something that you learn by going along. So I'm just covering a free-to-play title, which is called War Thunder. You might have heard of it. And I think this is a very niche spectrum when it comes to all that is possible to show on YouTube, unboxing, and so forth. There are so many potential styles of videos that you could make, and I'm very special in what I do. I cover a game, let's plays, tank reviews, and so forth. It's just down to one game. So there are actually 10,000 people that so far have pressed the subscribe button. Is amazing, especially when you consider the amount of competition out there, where there are so many much bigger channels out there, where there are so many more smaller YouTube channels out there that try their luck, that are just in a growing state and so forth. They get shout outs from numerous sources and so forth. That I actually collected 10,000 subscribers with my video style, with my broken English, and with the way that I approach the game, with my opinions, with the facts that I collect in the tank reviews. Again, it's amazing, it's satisfying, and it gives me broad smile. But you know, to visualize 10,000 people, it's difficult. However, I think the very first time that I went into the big Olympic stadium in Munich, which has a holding capacity of 69,000 people, I'm not quite sure. I was there on a Saturday evening with my grand uncle as a small boy. And I was quite impressed by the size of it, you know, and the amount of people being in there, and especially when the Laola waves went through before the match started. Then also, I don't know, me counting the little dots like 200 meters away, trying to get a visual on the amount of people that are in there, and to imagine that just roughly a sixth of the persons in there you know, are subscribed to my channel is an insane imagination. Not imagination because it's reality, but you know, to imagine it is kind of impressive. So yeah, but it hasn't come along like from yesterday to now. There was a steady growth process behind it, a healthy growth process without clickbait, in my opinion, without too many controversial videos. I think the people that are subscribed to my channel mostly stay, and I think this is what I really wanted to achieve, to bring out here the knowledge from my experience. And you know, I might not be the best player out there, but it was when I was beginning to do it. More on this in just a moment. I had this as an idea, you know, to bring my knowledge out there. And to a certain degree I do it with the tank reviews, but I could do it even more, and this is what I try a little bit more in the future, to really focus on this part, because sometimes I do actions in a gameplay that are not explained, but they are crucial for the success in the game, and maybe some more live commentary, some more tactical approaches to a game. I think this is the key to victory when it comes to, you know, teaching people how to play, or what is good and what is not so good in a game. I mean, if you play a game and you have 10-15 kills in a KB1B, you know, it goes along, you know, it's that one match that you had that was really successful, and it looks very natural, and then a person thinks, well, I can do that as well, but then he gets taken out by the very first player he meets when he tries to do that in his KB1B, or you know, the Soviet premium version. So it's really crucial to also listen to what I have to say when it comes to interpreting the footage, or you know, the overall impressions that I had from the tank, or really go deep into the deeper meaning of a tank review and make it. And so I think to come up with something very unique with all the competition that is out there is difficult. And so when I think about what I do on my channel, it's mostly let's play, it's first impressions, yeah, some episodes of Duck Talks, you know, which is me rambling for those who like to listen to my voice, which I think is not that special, you know, because I know this voice for my entire lifetime. So it's something that I got used to it, but some people really fancy it. I don't know why. And when I speak like this, now I really feel that I can understand people like Jingles or some other persons that have huge YouTube channels compared to my size, and they're like, I don't know what you guys are doing all day long, and I have no idea why I have so much success, you know, people with 500,000 subscribers plus. And it feels a little bit like being in the same situations. So imagine this huge number with that competition, with just covering this one game. Yeah, it's really satisfying, and it's around about 2 years of work right now that I put into it. And a year ago I had like 2,700 subscribers, and it really kicked off after I went into the Gaijin partnership program like 15 months ago, something like this. And it helped a great deal. Imagine the huge stock grind, the huge spading process, top tier, especially for tanks. I could not brought you every video that I did on especially top tier tanks or premium tanks if I wouldn't have the support of Gaijin. I know it's free advertising for them, and yes, I also profit by, you know, getting access to those tanks. But I think it's a win-win situation. At the end of the day, you get my honest opinion, and if I think a tank is bad for the game, I say so. If I think a tank is bad by default, I say so. If something's wrong with the tank, I say so. So, and I think it's just a big thumbs up for me to Gaijin when it comes to that. They never drop the support, you know. So despite my ranting about the game and some issues in the game, they never dropped the support. But then again, you know, any sort of even bad advertisement is advertisement, and I know this, but now it comes to the responsibility that I have with this huge amount of subscribers. I mean, think about 10,000 people trust me enough to subscribe to my channel, and when I say, for example, this tank is good, then they, you know, reach out, and when it's, for example, a premium tank that costs 30, 40, 45 dollars or euros to buy in a package or by itself, and then they play it and it doesn't really, you know, fit their playstyle, or they don't have, you know, other things going for it, like a good crew, which the tank relies on. There's so many aspects to cover it, and I try to cover it with my tank reviews, but the tank reviews, if I would include every single detail that I've written down to a tank, it would take 2, 3, 4 hours talking about the tank. And so I have to cut it to reduce it to like half an hour, which is, you know, a very short time when it comes to a complete review, with my unique style of the overlay of gameplay, with the, you know, X-ray and also armor view and so forth, and the statistics that I make, which is a unique thing that I have specialized on. And I think this is what my channel is known for. Whenever I talk to people on Discord that I talk the first time to, and some of them actually are subscribers that I have never talked to and so forth, and I ask them, hey, what do you think about this on my channel and that, and what could I improve and so forth. It's really asking for opinions of other persons, or you know, their opinion basically, and their statement, and I listen to this all. I also read every comment that has ever been made on my YouTube videos. You know, for the first 3 or 4 days I follow the comments of a video that I did, that I uploaded like 3 to 4 days ago. Especially when it's a more successful video, there are always pouring in some new comments, and it's interesting to read through them all and so forth. I think I can think that I have actually reached a desirable goal of having grown a channel that consists mostly of a healthy subscriber base, you know, not based on clickbait, not based on controversial topics, but a healthy growth. People that are not just staying, but they also give good feedback in the shape of normal thought out comments, with just a handful of idiots being there with insults, or, you know, being the War Thunder Master Race because they play simulator or RB, and, you know, you must not mention arcade and so forth. So you always have some persons out there that it's difficult to deal with, and I think, yeah, 10,000 subscribers, on we go to next target is 500,000. No, it will be a long way to reach even 20,000, I guess. If I reach it at the mid of next year, I would be okay with it. I think it's not so much to you know, just get the number of subscribers high, but to also keep true to what I began with. And this is something that I miss on certain other YouTube channels, that they have gone away from what actually made them great. For example, Max. Max is a great YouTuber. He's a fantastic person. He sometimes can be a bit of a jerk, but, you know, this is what makes Max Max. And when I first came across his channel, he was covering mostly chats, and I loved it. I had no idea where chat was about, but him, commenting on the gameplay and comparing the stats, it was something that I loved to do so. And while I still watch his channel, which is also a great help for my channel, I'd say, or an inspiration, or to a certain degree a guideline what to do and what not to do, I think I miss his part of covering chats. The same goes for Jingles. I loved his tank reviews in Wall of Tanks and also War Thunder, and it's a shame that he is now just presenting the best gameplay out there, and that's funny and it's unique, and look, this guy got all his medals in Wall of Tanks, and he rarely covers War Thunder at all. The last one being a chieftain that just camped the hell out of a position. So yeah, they have grown bigger, and I don't want to fall into this trap of shying away from what made me actually the YouTuber that I now am. Now please remember, I'm doing this as a hobby, and this is where I'm now, after like 16 minutes of rambling about 10,000 subscribers, to how to YouTube. And the fundamental issue that people have is to get started at all, to actually record something, to have a recording software, to have a editing software, to reach out and buy a microphone if they intend to do some commentary. And then actually when I saw some of the videos from especially one of my friends, Koza, I would have helped him to become also more known amongst the War Thunder player base, but he gave up on it. He didn't have the endurance to go through more than 1 or 2 videos, especially with the commentary. And I have to thank Koza here a lot for creating some of the art on the channel, the insignia, so to speak, and also the banner for not just Twitter but also YouTube itself, and some of the art. And he explained me a lot with recording and so forth, because I was a big noob, and I'm kind of still a noob. I mean, all that I have to do is pressing some buttons and the recording is running, after having done like 600 videos, I know now exactly what to do and what not to do. But there's also the phase of getting used to it, maybe even reaching out to get a better rig, a better PC, a bigger screen, maybe even better recording software. I use Shadowplay for recording because I have an NVIDIA graphic card. It's easy to use, the video quality is good enough for me, I'd say. If I can record in 4K, I think it's good enough. It might look a bit blurry to some people, but I say, hey, that's still better than me getting into trouble with a new recording program. So this is a bit of a realistic approach, I'd say, because I'm too lazy. I don't have the time and also not the money to buy myself a new recording program that gives me not a lot of benefits compared to Shadowplay. Then also which footage to use for what kind of video is also certain thing. Then to come up with a unique thing, like I think my tank reviews are still unique enough within War Thunder's community that I have kind of a beacon out there, if you want to have a proper review, have a look at Napalmratte. He probably has covered this tank, and I think this is also responsible for my growth, certain shoutouts and so forth. But this brings me again back to the very beginning. So what do you actually want to do? A simple commentary, a simple let's play, a review of the vessel, the tank, the plane, whatever, or a kill compilation with music added to it and so forth. I think the most difficult part is to get started at all. After it, you get used to it and you can do it every day if you have enough time. But also don't force yourself to upload every day. If you don't have, the feel for it, if you don't like to do a video at that day, don't do it. I think it's better to do a quality video than to just rush out the videos or just, create a video for the sake of it. people will know. And I think the best way to attract people is either with insane gameplay, like an insane kill compilation, and also some quality videos over the time. So if you can produce some 3 very good videos within a month, it's better than, you know, creating a low effort video every day. So I think I've put in like 2 years of work into my YouTube channel, and I've reached 10,000 subscribers with over 600 videos. So there was a lot of effort, and not every video that you make brings you automatically 10 more new subscribers. The competition is out there. So if you then, you know, make a lot of good videos and you think that they are still watchable like in half year's time, when it comes to not just the quality or how you improve yourself, then you have some basic video material. And I personally also subscribe not at the first glance to a YouTube channel, you know, coming here from also a viewer. I'm not just a YouTuber, but also somebody that watches YouTube. And if somebody has some good video out there that leads me to the promise that he will come up with some neat videos in the future, he has a much higher chance of getting my subscription than not. So I think it's important to establish a basis of videos, to maybe throw out the old garbage one. I think you can respect the very first 20 videos as pure practice. If you screw up with the editing, if you screw up with the commentary, or it's not the best quality out there, it's not all that terrible, because you can learn from it by doing it yourself. Rewatch your own videos, see how you improve and so forth. To be honest, there is a video out there from me called the it's about the TAR 152C3, called The Long Lens. I couldn't let it go like that, I think is the title. I think this is one of the very best videos that I ever did. Sure, the commentary quality, sound quality was not the very best, but how I actually talked about the plane, the editing, the kill compilation was actually pretty nice in the background. And so I think this was a very fair video. These days I turned a little bit back from editing due to, you know, I want to do daily uploads, and it's a lot of work. It requires a lot of you know, time to record the matches, to get actually the footage that I want to do, to get the fair impression of, for example, a new plane or a new tank, so that I actually can give my impressions to it. Now I have several stages about talking about a vehicle. For example, let's talk about tanks. So there is coming a new tank about it, and I played for like 5 to 10 matches, and then this is a first impressions, okay? But you have to play probably sometimes more than this to get the real hang of it, with the unique playstyle where it fits then into the meta, changing your playstyle. Object 268 is a prime example. If you play it like a Jagdtiger, it's not so good, but if you play it using more and more the mobility, then it's such a good tank destroyer in the right situation when it comes to the firepower and such. And this is where then other people that just play it straightforward sometimes have their problems seeing it like you. So you need to mention this as well. Very often you get the footage, but you forgot how you got it, okay? And this is an issue that I also have to fight with. And sometimes I just show the best footage with a tank or a plane, and it looks like, yeah, you know, the plane can do something or the tank can do something, but in fact it was just one match amongst 20 that I can show you right now, and I say how bad the tank and the plane is. But that's the issue, because if I show you, you know, the average match where I killed like 2 or 3 people and then I got ruffle stomped, because there was nothing that I could do about a superior opponent that I face on a regular basis, then bad luck, I guess. And then people in the comment section, you know, oh, you have to change your playstyle, you have to get good, learn to play, you noob, you suck, I'm unsubscribing. And so this is, you know, the hostility sometimes with the comment section. and this is why I show the gameplay that I show, but the commentary, my verdict on a tank, is absolutely 100% honest. So this also goes back to the Gaijin Partnership Program, which is a huge help when it comes to covering, interesting new premium vehicles. So once you have reached this 1,500 subscriber threshold, you can apply for it and you get the support. But how you actually manage to get the income at the right time when a new patch drops and a very interesting tank is out there, and you cover it and you play it for a day and then make a video, upload it, then this is a very good source of your channel growing. And yes, this helps, but you need then to continue this line, otherwise people they have subscribed because of this. So you need to remember this. Please, as a YouTuber, don't do clickbait. I think this creates all sorts of problems, like a toxic community, people unsubscribing after a while, you getting a bad reputation. And once you have a bad reputation out there, I think it's very difficult to get rid of it, especially when there is the clickbait stuff around your channel. I think that's really bad. But how to make thumbnails, for example, I very often use, for example, the replay. I go into a match and then position the tank, and I went away from presenting the tank when it's firing or when it's receiving a shot. But certain tanks look really bad, for example the Hori prototype and the production, because they have just this standard green camouflage and it looks awful. So either you buy for 200 golden eagles another better looking camouflage, or you put some creative stuff on it, but not too fancy, not too funny. Maybe you just focus on the gun, and so forth, and you not necessarily need Photoshop to make thumbnails. Some of my very first, or like to half of, I think for the very first 200 videos I used the editing program to create a thumbnail in a very noobish fashion, with also an overlay that one of my friends, again, Kosa, created for me. Low effort, but again, it gets better as you go along, when you get used to the programs, when you reach out someday on the internet and try to figure out how to make it better and so forth. It all comes along. Make 20-30 YouTube videos at first, just for the training purposes, trying out different styles, commentary. But another thing is that I really need to reach out, and this is to one of my friends, I'd say. Don't try to copy somebody else that has left War Thunder, and you're copying its exact style and you're failing at it. This is not good, and especially when the style of the person that left the game is controversial enough in the shape of how to make the commentary, then it's not an automatic I overtake all his subscribers and so forth. No, this doesn't work. I've seen it. I have never tried it. I don't believe in it, and I've watched some of those videos. They could be so much better with background footage, some gameplay sound, I guess, because if you don't have it right away with your perfection of commentary, avoiding all the ums and what's the right word and so forth, you actually make a worse commentary than if you include the gameplay sound. So I just want to mention this. This is not, creating or starting beef with somebody. This is just an honest tip. So, if you guys really want to see an extra video about how I began to make YouTube, what I learned from it, and including into the discussion the way about tank reviews and so forth, then let me know in the comment section if you really want to see an extra video about it, because I think now after 600 videos I think I have a good idea what to do and what not to do. And while I rambled here for 10-15 minutes about it, I think there could be so much more being covered and it's just a help for, you know, beginners. So let's see about this. If you really like it, let me know in the comment section. Vote up the comments if somebody makes one that you say, yes, I want to see it, so I can go on with it. And then let's talk about the naval testing this weekend. So I played around about 5-6 matches with it, and after that I stopped it, and it was just America versus Germany, and you know, it was not a pure nation versus nation. We saw the usual patrol boats and we saw the usual destroyers, and then one new vessel for each country, and there was some corvettes, modern corvettes with some autocannons, with magazine-fed autocannons, I guess, and they were interesting to play, but a bit boring as well, and I'm not quite sure what to think about this. I will try it out, I will make a video on it today, but it is the problem that the basic criticism that I always had about the naval testing has not been addressed. So there is no cover for the patrol boats that needed for not just now the corvettes but also the former destroyers. The problems are still there. The range finding stuff, I still can handle it perfectly well, but it's just annoying, and the constant readjustment is just not fun. It's boring, repetitive, and screws you over more often than it gives you an advantage. So I think Gaijin still refuses to go here with the World of Warships aiming stuff, where you mark something and then the range automatically adjusts. You have to do it manually, and that means a lot of practice. And while I agree to this, I think Gaijin still is so afraid of being so close to wargaming, where wargaming actually has made some basic good sorry about this, basic good decisions when it comes to the very basic gameplay, that Gaijin still insists of being so different that they screw them over themselves. And also, instead of solving certain issues with the gameplay, the reliability and so forth, we see again new, more modern vehicles being dropped into it, and then the certain missiles are not working, and it's all a big mess. So new stuff, new stuff, new stuff, more, you know, modern stuff that people buy their way through to it. And I think this is just something that tanks have brought into it. More modern vessels, you know, they really bring in the money from the free-to-play market and so forth. I'm not a fan of this. We'll see how it actually goes when at some point in the far future we see a closed beta, not a pre-closed beta, from naval testing. It was a bit repetitive and boring. There was instant spawn point pushing by the enemies and camping, so you were defeated in the first minute, you respawn, and you were instantly shot to pieces by 3, 4, 5 enemies, and if it didn't happen to you, then to the enemy team. So it was a complete ruffle stump. The map design is garbage at this point in time. It's a complete mess, and it's just simply not fun, and this is far from what I want to see in the game. However, I think the gameplay itself, you know, to control the vessels is more streamlined. It's more direct, it's less screwed over, but how exactly it works out, I have to play some more matches, and I may do a video on it. And that brings me to the golden opportunity. So I did a video called The Golden Opportunity, where I asked you to make a comment what you want to see changed in War Thunder, your ideas for improvement and so forth. And you know, there were over 1,000 comments the last time I looked at it, and I tried to really write together a big, let's call it essay or letter, but it takes a lot of time. I can assure you I've pumped in dozens of hours of just writing on it, you know, deleting stuff, and to bring a structure to it is really difficult, because a lot of the stuff in War Thunder is interacting with each other. So I actually have to make some sort of, you know, scientific paper here to cover it all, and that takes a lot of time. And again, this is you know, taking away from the time that I have with my girlfriend, from time to make YouTube videos, to play the game, which is the core of it all. And you know, then there is something called sleep and real life. I'm not sure how important this is to you guys, but for me it has some importance. So I have not forgotten about it, but it takes time. Also, I postponed it due to the fact that the new patch dropped with all the new main battle tanks. Some issues have gone worse, some issues have been taken away, and I think we have to really work around it as it goes. But I have not forgotten. Then the first April Fool's event with the submarines. And in a nutshell, I was really disappointed, and I think it was a test for a new game. If so, I don't think that I will play it. The controlling of the submarines was awful and very bad in my books. It was not fun, it was way too campy. If it was a test for the guided rockets for the upcoming tier 6 jets, like in 2 years time, I don't know, then I don't want to play that either, because it's point and click and just camping extremely hard. I have no such desire for such an undynamic playstyle. It's just boring, and I think this is again reaching back to the topic that the World War II stuff is so amazing to play within War Thunder, compared to, you know, when stabilizers come in and so forth, whether it's reaching a point and click festival, because it's just your skill matters more, you know, laying an ambush, and if you do the wrong movement, if you come around the corner, it takes a while to stabilize your gun and then take the well-aimed shot, whereas the enemy has then a lot of time to retreat or you know, shoot at you first. So I was really disappointed with this really boring first April Fool's event. Having said this, the other April Fool's events that I can remember, you know, beginning with the first Pony Nation like 5 years ago, that was amazing. Then also the Godzilla, the giant snake that was wreaking havoc on the Stalingrad map. That was fun to watch. Sadly, I couldn't download the dev server in time before it closed down, so I would have loved to play it, but it was nice to see. Then what was the other one? Yeah, the Walkers. That was the one first April Fool's event, and it was hilarious. It was amazing, you know, to climb on rooftops and one-shot stuff with your KV-2 cannon and all the attached turrets. It was hilarious. I loved it. But then also the sidekick at Wall of Tanks with the inflatable tanks, you know, that shoot potatoes and carrots, you know, as APCR. Premium ammunition, you know, premium vegetable. It was hilarious. I loved it. Then a year later, I think it was the Golden Hind, you know, where we first got our hands on a sailing ship, you know, for some testing of the upcoming closed beta or pre-closed beta. It was hilarious. And then also the Kraken that reached out from the depths and sucked you down when you extended across the map border. It was such a lovely piece of detail. I loved it. And then also last year, well, it was a bit too much testing with the new map. Then also the helicopters and also the main battle tanks. I talked in separate videos about it, why it was so much fun, because you couldn't get fed up with it within a few days time, and it was just so nice and exciting. The stabilizers and the new armor and the new you know, everything being new and some sort of balanced, you know. It was fun. It was fun while it lasted. And then this year, just the submarines. Lol. Really? That low effort? Lol, really? No thanks. That was highly disappointing. Then let's talk about the Chronicles of World War II. A few days ago, Gaijin has released a special which is called the Chronicles of World War II in War Thunder. And you can, you know, fulfill some special tasks, or you can complete them. And some way down the lane, so to speak, you can get your hands on the first bunch of well, vessels, you know, tanks, and also the planes, and then the second stage, so to speak. And I think then you also can get some 3D decorator rifles and some yeah, well, art cover for your tank, you know, crocodile, lion, bear, snake, wolf, and whatnot, and so forth. Some boosters that you can get, and so forth. It's, yeah, there's a lot to stuff to get. However, there are also extra rewards in unlocking vehicle blueprints, and we'll talk about them at the end. So the first thing is, what can you get your hands on? It's the T18E2, a tank on wheels, and it looks really unique and fun. I want to get my hands on this. The question is how it drives, and if it drives like the German Puma, then it will have its difficulties on slopes and so forth. However, how the turret with the gun will work out with also an APHE shell, I am really interested how also the armor will stand up, and hull break and not. I will cover this vehicle as soon as I get my hands on it. Then the second tank, the Lorraine Automoteur 155mm MLE 50, the French Hunter. Hell yes, I want it. I want that thing. To be honest, if you exclude some of the low tier stuff, the Hori and also the German Sturmpanzer or the Brummbär and a lot of the Soviet stuff, this is, I think, one of the higher caliber HE shooters, and with a 40 kilogram shell, 28 of them, with the chassis of the Lorraine 40T, so a lot of mobility but not a lot of armor, but an additional 20mm gun. Yes, I want that thing. I want that thing. But if it's really worth it, I cannot tell you at this stage. But you know, the raw stats are really promising. So yeah. But for the planes, they seem to be a little bit disappointing. I mean, the Tandem Mai is a little Soviet attack aircraft that could, according to the title, tier 1. It looks a bit derpy with a back gunner turret. I'm not quite sure how good it is. Bomb load, rockets, cannon, armament, nothing is stated here. It looks like a few machine guns. Strong engine, very strange tail section. I'm not quite sure if it's worth it, but you might pick it up along the way. It doesn't really require that many tasks. However, then a dual motor whirlwind, Westland whirlwind, if this is anything remotely as crap as the Tech Tree version, I don't think this thing is worth it. But again, we will have to see. I mean, it looks like a prop version of the ME262 that was set on a diet for 20mm with a very limited amount of ammunition. I'm not quite sure. So some additional bombs, but I'm not really sure if it's worth it. In terms of collectors, yes. However, then there are extra rewards in unlocking vehicle blueprints. I'm not quite sure how exactly it is done, but one of the tanks that you can get your hands on is the Matilda Mark II infantry tank with the F96 cannon. In the Soviet Tech Tree, I have this tank from previous events, I guess, and the tank is fun. But I think, well, I think I made a tank review about it, or at least some first impressions. You might look it up. However, you know, this tank is slow. It's really fun with the armor and the gun. It's definitely better than the British Matilda, in my opinion. However, the second one is something that gives me a lot of pain in the stomach region. The PV2 Harpoon Bomber USA. I think I have the very same version. Mine is called the PV2D, and I played it, and you might see some background footage as I go along. This thing is insane. Let me just tell you a bit about the stats. We have 8 central mounted forward-facing 50 cals with 2000 rounds. So with the current performance of 50 cals, you are a head-on king. No doubt about this. You have a bomber spawn, and you can also, you know, ask yourself if you even want more firepower. So 4 additional machine guns in machine gun pods. So then you reach 12 M2 Browning 50 cals with a lot of ammunition, but I think you have already so much forward-facing firepower that you should go with the maximum payload, which is 8 HVR rockets, perfect for big game hunting in the shape of, you know, hunting down German BV-238 bombers or other big bombers, derping in some head-ons or just going after ground targets, and then 6 1,000-pound bombs at a battle rating of 3.3. And just remember that, well, the first B-25 J1 sits at 4.0 with just half of the bomb load and much less forward-facing M2 Brownings, less maneuverable, and, well, you also have with the PV-2D great defensive capabilities, one-shotting a lot of enemies. It's insane how it goes along. It's an insane silver line and RP grinding machine. It's fantastic. It's borderline overpowered, especially in my hands. I get, you know, my decent results. It's the best vehicle to use boosters on, silver line boosters, RP boosters for this kind of battle rating range. It's fully worth it in the current state. If this will get nerfed, I don't know. But again, the problem is the prices for this thing. When you listen to my recommendation, like I said it just here, will reach absolutely phenomenal levels. Because you can build it yourself together, if I'm not mistaken, like the Fairy Tiger or this strange Cobra. So I'm not quite sure how this will work out, but I can assure you, if this thing gets spammed out, it will ruin the matchmaker at this battle rating. It's not fun to play against. It's boring and repetitive in its playstyle, yet it's rewarding. I think this is, again, not very good for RRB in particular, where you can farm stupid amounts of silver lines with it. And also, you know, for tank RB, it just has this insane bomb load. If you know how to use it, if you really get into the details of how to play the vehicle, then you see that this is insane. It can take a lot of damage, it can take a lot of ground targets out, and it also can dish it out in a head-on. It has the bomber spawn altitude, everything that you want. You know, if a little child wants to create an attack bomber, it would create the PV-2D. Especially with that battle rating, it's obscene. And so again, with having said this, I actually advertise it, but I don't want to advertise it. Of course, would I recommend it? Yeah, it's worth the money, I guess. How much money? Well, $25, it's really worth it in the current state, but no more, because everything exceeding that you could buy yourself so many more low tier premiums or talismans at higher tiers and whatnot. You have to think about the long-term value of the plane. Of course, if you struggle with silver lines, this is the thing to go for. I grinded with it, I think, over 20 million silver lines in the course of under a week in preparation for this patch. It's fully worth it. And how this will work out, I'm not the greatest fan of it, that Gaijin is doing it this way, but hey, what can you do? Yeah. So no, you can, there it is. You can reach the vehicle blueprints if the entire player base has fulfilled 400,000 special objectives together, and if you have completed special objectives for one vehicle class, so for one tank and also 7 for the plane, then you get the plane and the tank, you know, the Matilda and the PV-2D. So yeah, it's a lot of grinding, it's a lot of playing. Say farewell to your free time, to your private life and so forth. It's really obscene. So the next huge topic is me talking about the German player base, the Tiger 1 and the Tiger 2 and their problems with their opponents, matchmaker, power creep and so forth. It's a huge topic. I've talked about it in the past quite a bit, but I replayed them recently, and it has not gone better. In fact, it has gone even worse. So I think the problem that the Tiger and the Tiger 2 has is that a lot of people are going to play them. So especially the newer players play those tanks, and even as somebody that is decent in other nations, I always struggle within the German nation around about this battle rating or this tier, and there are so many things interacted with it, and there is a lot of hate going towards Gaijin, but also the so-called new players from the standpoint of elitists. So every bad thing that is there in War Thunder Ground Forces come together with the Tiger and the Tiger 2. So a fact is, for me, when I play them, that I get up tiered 7 or 8 times out of 10 battles. I get a full up tier in the Tiger H1 or the Tiger E. So I face 6.7 tanks, and they just ruffle stomp me, especially the British with their stabilizer, their amazing AP performance, and if that is not even enough at long range, even the APDS and their bouncy armor doesn't make it that much better. So I have to face with an obsolete tanks that not just are better, have a higher rate of fire, much more penetration that ignores my armor even if I'm angled, but they also have a stabilizer, APDS and good armor and are equally fast. And so everything that you can do in a head-on engagement is doomed to fail, and you have to face them all the time in an up tier. I rarely have to face other 5.7 tanks or 4.7 tanks, are an absolute rarity, And then you think, well, if I get 6.7 games anyway, well, let's play the Tiger 2, better armor, better gun. The answer is, well, enjoy your 7.7 matchmaking. And why is that? So first of all, why we have the matchmaker problem later on, reality versus game. First of all, I think the vehicles get spammed out. Where do the German players come from otherwise, I mean, there is so much interest in those tanks that the matchmaker has to throw them against everything else. And very often you see Germany versus literally the rest of the world within War Thunder, and then even the fake matchmaker is just a way to compensate for the huge amount of players that request to have a game in the Tiger, that they get one shot after one shot and lose game after game, especially with the lack of a light tank or scouting mechanic or flanking support at all. Doesn't really matter, they get spammed out on and on and on and on and on, and it's so easy to farm them, it's so easy to kill them when you are facing them in your Centurion Mark III or your Tortoise or whatnot, Carmarthen, FE4 202 or your T29, hell, even the T34. I mean, in which mind is it fair that a T34, the American heavy tank with a 120mm gun that has somewhere in the region of 250mm of penetration, with insane amount of armor and practically the same mobility as a Tiger or a Panther, can face them on a regular basis? Do you think that is fun? And so I mean, there's always the funny thing when people say, well, you have to play defensively at long range. Well, tell me, how can I play defensively if I need to go for the objective where I need to capture it and where I have to do it because there is no real medium tank there? The Panther behaves more like a heavy tank, turret rotation speed, mobility, armor. And I have no support except the RE251 premium tank, which is expensive, and you cannot argue with this in a free-to-play title, or you go into the region of discussing here the pay-to-win, or even worse, pay-to-be competitive, which is one of the aspects that turned me away from World of Tanks. And now we have the same issues within War Thunder for quite some time, mind you, and Gaijin has done nothing to address this. I have no idea how the stats look at the Gaijin headquarters, but it seems like they're okay with this. And so to balance it out, I know, of course, if a vehicle gets spammed out, it must not be overpowered, because that would ruin the fun. But you know, we have a lot of those tanks and planes, making their way into War Thunder for quite some time over the years. But it must not be a German plane or tank. And then they get nerfed, up-tiered, and then Gaijin finds new documents that prove that suddenly their reload is much longer. Remember the KPZ-70 or MBT-70, remember the Leopard 2K, just to remind you of some of the newer examples. BF-109 G14 some years ago. All this stuff is interacting with each other. The short-term solution is, don't play them. Get rid of this frustration. I know everybody wants to play the tank, but War Thunder is the wrong place for a tank like the Tiger, with the BR compression, the lack of mobile flanking support, where it's so easy to kill them, where the fuel tanks at the bottom of the vessel explode if you hit the turret and so forth. It's just, they are comically bad, and there are guns that bounce all the time. They do not one-shot that often as they should compared to other ammunition. AP-CDC rounds are some of the worst within the game when it comes to normalization and dealing with angled armor, except if they are extremely high caliber. So it's a repetitive story. So then there's also the reality versus game. So in reality, the Tiger was facing Shermans, and the Tiger was mostly in a defensive position. So it had the ambush shot, it had the armor, it could prepare itself, it had killing zones made up, it had flanking supports, and the Tigers were crewed by just the best of the best tankers. They were just manned by the creme de la creme of the German tankers that previously have fought in Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs and had a lot of kills and good training, especially for the tank. And the opposition was just in inferior tanks like the T-34, like the Sherman. They always were in the advance when they had to face Tigers. They couldn't do anything against the armor from the front at range when the Tiger was especially angled and so forth. So this is what players want to reenact within War Thunder. Of course, the tank has to face other tanks. For example, I made a video about it, the T-25 versus Tank X in a direct comparison. And I think that the T-25 is a better tank. It has a similar gun, it has similar if not better armor, and it's just has better handling, better mobility. Everything is just more appropriate for the meta of War Thunder, where you have to go in alone in a city fight into a capture zone versus tanks with better turret traverse and so forth. It all is interacting with each other, and it's just a shame that tanks like the Tiger II or the Tiger I are getting constantly up-tiered when I play them. They get constantly ruffle stomped. They have to face superior vessels every single match, and it's just not fun. So what is the long-term solution? Well, the British with their 20-pounder, with its stabilizer and APDS and strong AP post-penetration damage and their childish armor, they need to go to 7.0, or you need to give the Tiger a battle rating of 5.3, or the matchmaker needs to have a spread of 0.7 battle rating. And again, even World of Tanks is now approaching a ±1 matchmaker, something that Gaijin should also address with the 0.7. And believe me, that would be easily possible. But again, the problem is that those tanks have such a strong reputation that they get spammed out. Yes, there are people that are camping somewhere and then they snipe the enemy tanks, and then they say the tank is not bad. No, the tank is not bad, but it has no support, and hence the experience playing the tank is not the best. The armor doesn't count anything anymore if you compare it to the firepower of the opposition. Your gun is not the strongest anymore, and also the post-penetration damage effect has been reduced over the patches, and everything plays together. Yes, the Tiger H1, the Tiger E, they got a new shell with more high explosive content, but that was just due to the introduction of the heavy tank number 6 as the Japanese premium. And so don't lie to me, guys, I know what I'm talking about, and the best solution is play something else, play against the Tigers. And if then you get killed by the Tigers, you must learn how to play the game. If then you ruffle stomp the Tiger teams, then you know what I'm talking about. Just compare the gameplay for yourself. Be honest to yourself. It's not a very popular opinion or statement, I know this, but this is just how it is in War Thunder, well, for me. Then I think, yeah, reality versus game. Just think about this in more detail, you know. Again, the good training versus the inferior tanks that had no communication, whereas the Tiger had all the support and so forth. Yeah, it's really something that you have to think about. Then the next topic, Subnautica, one of the best games that I have ever played, period. A fantastic single player survival game that has it all. Beautiful landscape, scary parts of the map, very, very good story with a fantastic ending. I'm not spoiling here, but the thing is, do you guys want me to cover this game, you know, a bit more gameplay, a bit more story part? Let me know in the comment section. I know this is more or less a pure War Thunder focused channel, but this is something that I had a lot of fun doing, a lot of fun covering, a lot of recording that I still have, but it's challenging to, you know, point out the interesting parts, and when you collect resources and so forth, that is not that boring, but it goes all hand in hand. I've played through the game now, and I've played several, well, campaigns, so to speak, in the past, where all the patches came in, and well, I'm not quite sure if you guys would watch it, because I think one of the previous videos had not even 600 views, and you know, when I have now 10,000 subscribers, I want to present stuff that you guys are interested. Yes, I know it's my channel, but you know, it's a bit weird. I think Subnautica deserves much more attention, much more covering, at least from my part, because I really enjoyed this game. And then let's talk about some Autobahn stories. The situation is the following. I am a passionate driver of you know, highways. I like to drive fast. I'm still young and dumb enough to do so, I guess. I have a car that is fast enough for, you know, the left lane. And you know, in Germany there is the so-called Autobahn, and there are certain parts on it where you can go unlimited speed. Certain parts are having some limits. When it's a big crossing of two Autobahns, then you know, the area around it is limited with speed, which makes sense. But there is also a lot of tuning culture and a lot of car culture within Germany, and people very often have a bit more a better look at their car than they sometimes can afford. Now, my car is still within the realms of, you know, that it makes sense. The engine has some love. It received some love in the past, and also I think there is not a lot of body work going on. I just set the car a bit deeper on the road, and also have some 19 inch, if I can say this, tires, and some Niederquerschnittsreifen. I love this German word. So tires with not a lot of rubber to have a lot of good additional suspension for it. So I'm really very much sticking to the road, and it increases a little bit the fuel consumption of the car, but I don't mind because I have a diesel, and I think that this diesel is, you know, 4-cylinder, 140 horsepower, yeah, 140, and so I think it's a very sensible car, especially when I have to cover larger distances. It really makes sense within Germany. Now, it's one of the scandal diesels, and I really feel betrayed by the car company because it was some unnecessary stupid stuff. Sometimes it reminds me of how Gaijin handles their game. But yeah, the story that I wanted to tell you is that it's about the culture and within Germany and how people talk to each other sometimes when it comes to cars. So for many people, a car is just a thing that transports you from A to B, and nothing more than this counts. For me, it's a bit more. It's a bit more passion. I think if I want to have a car in my, you know, that I really want, it would be something like the IMSA GTO with the 5-cylinder engine and insane, you know, turbo pressure up to 3.5 bars, and just a maniac's car. I know that I will not be able to afford such a car because you have to practically do it yourself. It's not there for purchase. It was a race car that was banned from the USA by the Americans because it was too fast for them. So that tells you quite a lot. But back to my car. Yeah, my car is very much what I need. It's not the biggest car, it doesn't have the strongest engine, but it really goes fast enough for the left lane. It has some moderate fuel consumption. It looks good for me, and that's all that I ask for. It has enough storage space so that I actually could travel with it, and if I need something even bigger than this, I have some other opportunities from the cars from my family. So I'm in a very okay-ish position, so to say. So about the culture within Germany, when there is a scandal unveiled, or you know, we have the fuel prices racing up again, then people very often like to point at other people and say, it's your fault, your car consumes too much fuel, your exhaust and so forth is bad for the environment, and shame on you, you know, and it comes very much from persons that have very often no idea what they're talking about. There are not that many people out there, but like within a comment section of a YouTube video, it's the loud people that you really notice. And for example, it's always funny because on the fuel station, I've very much witnessed some cases of, you know, an older woman in a car that is like 30 years old, you know, with flat tires, no profile on the tires, not the right air pressure within the tires, you know, the car completely fucked up, pointed at her finger at a SUV driver and said, oh, such a bad car and so forth. And I was like shaking my head because I know for sure that her car consumed twice the fuel of that SUV, and this SUV, well, it's also not the most fuel economic car. It had a 6-cylinder diesel, but it somewhat makes sense because this person actually needs this SUV, you know, to you know, because of the work that this person is doing. The funny thing is, very often people don't know what they are actually costing themselves in terms of fuel. So when I look at my car with the broad tires and, you know, the way that I drive, I know what kind of fuel that I need. Also because of me having done some fuel test runs in the past myself, I know what the car is capable of, you know, just needing. I brought it down to 3.5 liters. 3.5 liters of diesel. That is not a lot. The lowest amount that I ever needed was with the summer tires, 3.3 liters. And it was relaxing driving, no doubt about this. Under normal circumstances, with the normal traffic, it goes up to somewhere between 4.5 and 5 liters, and if I really hammer it down at top speed over the autobahn with no excuses, you know, metal to the pedal to the metal, then you know it consumes 9 liters. But I have driven some petrol-powered cars, and oh god, they are really hungry at this high speeds. And you know, the top speed that I'm talking here about is above 230 kilometers an hour. And a lot of the German cars are limited to just 250 kilometers an hour. Not just, but you know. So what is this in miles per hour? Well, it's roughly around about 135-ish miles per hour, you know, and it's perfectly legal on certain parts of the Autobahn to drive this because the speed is unlimited. But there are other parts that are limited. And this is where the story of today's episode of Autobahn Story comes in. So it was, you know, approaching 20 degrees Celsius. I had, you know, new brakes. I had my summer tires for a few days on the car right now, and I was having a good time. The day before I drove home, you know, thundering up the road with 220 kilometers an hour, and I had a good laugh of it. I'm relaxed at the speed, I'm used to it, and I could go faster if the car would go faster, but those are the limits, you know. We're going above 4,000 RPM on a diesel engine. It's really inefficient. This hence why it needs so much fuel compared to the normal driving. Yes, I know there's also the air resistant and so forth, but you know, stay with me. So then I slowed down because speed limits were coming up. I know the road. I have situational awareness. Not just because I'm a gamer, but because, you know, it's common sense to look really straight down the road and see what's coming. And yeah, then yesterday, where the actual story happened, I was, you know, approaching the steep hill where there are some limits, and well, in front of me was a car with a woman in it with like 4 to 5 children. I don't read too much into it being a woman. It has happened to me that a lot of men lack the situational awareness and lack the awareness of the rules of, you know, normal German Autobahn driving, which are actually there, you know, so-called Rechtsfahrgebot and so forth. And they just, you know, there are 3 lanes: right lane, middle lane, and left lane. And on the right lane are all the trucks driving with their 80 kilometers an hour, sometimes a bit faster. And sometimes they overtake themselves, so they need 2 lanes, and this is a big problem. And very often from the middle of the road, without giving the light signals and without looking in the mirror, people just jump to the left lane, and you have to brake really hard. And this is what I think is disgusting, annoying, and a big danger. Even if you're just, quote-unquote, just driving 160 kilometers an hour and they pull this off, this bullshit, you know, very often you just have under 50 meters to brake down to their speed, which is disgusting. So if it's top speed or not is not that important as much as it is the message. So back to that woman. She was in front of me, and she was driving on the left lane, and there were the speed limits, and I had no problem with it. The problem was that the middle lane was empty, and there were not that many trucks on the right lane. So usually when I go even at top speed, I'm on the middle lane and even switching to the right lane, if it makes any sense. And you might think, wow, that is some stupid driving. No, because sometimes out of nowhere a really fast car comes, you know, BMW with a V8, Audi with a turbocharged engine, or a Porsche, Mercedes, you name it, you know, then they're just going 300 if it's possible, and you're just and off they go. So to actually keep the left lane free for the ones that are really fast is something that I'm used to, and therefore I'm following the so-called Rechtsfahrgebot, which means you should take the right lane if possible. Back to the woman. So we were ending the restricted area, and then it was unlimited speed. The problem was she didn't see the sign, and she was sticking to the left lane with 120 kilometers an hour. Behind me, you know, they were stacking up all kinds of fast cars, big Porsche, BMWs and whatnot. but it wasn't my problem. So I didn't give that woman the lights. I didn't give the left light signal, you know, which is a not so rude way of, you know, telling her to go to the other lane, which was completely free. And she was driving there, driving there, driving there. At some point behind me, the cars were giving the woman in front of me the horns. And then finally, after 2 or 3 kilometers, she went to the middle lane. But it's forbidden to actually overtake somebody on the middle lane, so hence why nobody did it. And you know, there are some draconic punishment if you do it, or if you actually cause an accident by doing this. So then we all thundered down the road. I was quickly switching in front of the woman on the middle lane so that the even faster cars could overtake me. I have no problem with this. This is how it's supposed to be. Then later on, the traffic became more. There was becoming more and more traffic, and so I had to slow down to what the traffic required. You know, because you cannot always go full speed, which I love to do if it's possible. So I have to point this out, which is not the most responsible thing to do. I'm aware of this as well, thank you. But really back to this woman. At some point, suddenly, I was on the left lane with 140 kilometers an hour, and suddenly she rushed towards me. But I couldn't go to the middle lane because it was full of cars. And in front of me there were also cars. And we were approaching you know, part of the Autobahn where there were again speed limits, and so she drove really fast towards me and just braked just behind of me, and the distance between her car and my car was just 3 meters. I couldn't see her damn lights in my mirror. She was way damn too close, and this happened a few times. The funny part was then suddenly I could switch to the middle line, and I gave her the opportunity to overtake her within the parts where there are speed limits. But she didn't go any faster. She held her relative position to mine, but she could easily have overtaken me. So it happened just to be that another truck overtake another truck, so I had to switch to the left lane, and there was a distance again between me and her of 100 meters. Suddenly she accelerated and again break down. Remember, this woman had 3 to 4 kids in her damn car, and she drove like this. So I was really beginning to feel really uncomfortable. If I had to brake or reduce the speed a little bit, she was way too close to actually react to this. This is why you have some distance to it. And this happened so often that at some point when the speed was unlimited, I had to go away from this woman. I was really feeling like I'm in danger. So it was an insanely uncomfortable situation. It's funny to say it, but yeah, this is one of the things that I don't understand, why people are driving that unresponsible. And this is coming from a guy that loves to drive 200, 230, up to 233 kilometers an hour, whatever the car can do. And you know, that's around about 135 miles an hour, and it's perfectly legal. And I trust the car. I know what the car can do. I have the brakes, I have the tires, I have the situational awareness to do so, and yet it's dangerous. But the most danger comes from people that lack situational awareness, that don't give the light signals, and just, you know, switch the lane and ignore the guy that's coming with high speed, you know. And I think this is one of the Autobahn stories that I wanted to share with you. At the end of the story, I think I just drove as fast as I could to go away from this woman, and I never saw her again, gladly. However, I was witnessing I think there were 2 accidents that I really witnessed where somebody caused a crash because of the lack of situational awareness, and he crashed into a much faster car, switching the lines without giving light. So please don't do this, regardless where you're driving and how fast are you driving, because this is one of the biggest bullshits that you can pull off. And just because you're driving slow doesn't mean that you're driving safe. Especially if your tires have no air in them, if they don't have the appropriate pressure. And yeah, I think that was some nice story. Then let's talk about the art contest. So the channel art that I have was created by Kosor and by me and Exe, and maybe it's time to change it a little bit, especially when hopefully sooner than later German or the warships within War Thunder go into a closed beta, so that the ships soon TM falls away, that I get some new channel brand or channel art. And I wanted to ask you guys once more if I should make an art competition or if you would participate in it. Now, I cannot tell you anything how much it would be worth of it, but if it's something really fancy, if it's something really awesome and you feel like you want to do it, maybe together with me, let me know in the comment sections if you really feel comfortable in creating it and sending it to me directly, for example via Discord. Just feel free to do so, and maybe I make a competition out of it, and the first three places will receive some golden eagles out of my own pocket. I don't know. I'll have to see, but the question is, are you guys interested? And yes, I'm asking this that late into the Duck Talks because I'm not quite sure if you guys are, you know, if everybody's interested in it. So it goes out more to the die-hard fans. So yeah, and now I think everything is done. Just the questions from last Duck Talks are there to be answered. So I tried to answer the questions as fast as I can possibly do. First one is from Rats Edit Guy. I guess I pronounced that right. You said in one of your videos that you can sometimes hear other tanks when they are close. Can you explain how do you do this? I turned engine sounds all the way up, but except of making me deaf every time a plane flies over, it doesn't help. Well, if an enemy tank has to actually move that you hear him, and I think what I'm talking about is because other people are listening to music. They don't have this possibility of hearing other tanks. And if then I look at the minimap and none of my allies is close by, it must be an enemy. If this guy stands still in an ambush and doesn't move, doesn't maneuver, I don't hear him, and very often I also then run into an ambush. So Iopus asks, Napalm, I would like to thank you for your videos. I guess that you know me, I'm one of the oldest subscribers. While I reached finally the KP 70, I found a full BR full of M1 Abrams and people sniping across the map. My question is, where is the fun? I don't feel anything anymore on that BR. Well, I have to agree, it's point and click. Who shoots first most of the time wins. M1 Abrams gets spammed all the way. I think it's a bit fun for a while if you are in the M1 Abrams fully upgraded, but it loses the fun much faster than, for example, the World War II era of vehicles without stabilizers, where situational awareness and laying a good ambush is actually much more fun than a top tier, where also the tanks are so much more mobile and fast. So then Bahikai Hidayat, I hope I pronounced it right, asks, which is better nation to grind for the high tiers or mid-tier game and line? Soviet or USA or British? Well, I think the British are a bit of a grey nation up until 6.7, where you reach the 20 pounder with the stabilizer, APDS, AP, trollish armor, and the okayish mobility, and you actually gain a bit of reverse gear, where you have a full battle rating that's, you know, there to ruffle stomp. But then at higher tiers they lose it, all the interest, and after the Chieftain Mark III, I guess it's, you have seen everything, and the Challenger is just a better version of the Chieftain Mark III with, well, a bit higher rate of fire, with a bit better turret armor, but still the same very old weak spots, and you know, not being the most mobile tank out there. Florent X Turelman asks, I hesitate to grind the Italian bomber, do you recommend them? Answer, no, except if you're a lover of them. Then yeah, Then AK Night Stalker O asks, why do you think the Americans and British never fight each other in tank battles but all other nations do? Well, I think they were never real enemies since the American Independent War, if I'm not mistaken, and they never changed it in the Cold War era as well. So I think that's a bit odd that Gaijin still keeps that, because I think especially the Americans would need some British 20-pounder bias, and also the the British would really see what a really good strong heavy tank is if they would come across something like the T-34 or the T-29. So this would be a real, to a certain degree, the biggest game changer that is out there with the least amount of effort at the hands of Gaijins. A really large comment here comes from Asif Talpur, and he asks, anyways, can you make a video on what tanks you would like to see in War Thunder, especially in the light tank category, since that's where the Germans are complete and utter disadvantage. And the comment goes on, but basically I've talked a lot about this in the past, and I have talked about the tanks that I want to see, and even such a tank like the German Walker Bulldog or any variant of it, the Panzer 58 Mutz. It doesn't really matter, but we need something. Germany completely lacks them, except at low tier 1 or 2, but then, you know, it's also the not just the flanking support but also the spotting mechanics that Germany really desperately needs. And don't tell me that the RE251 as a premium tank really cuts it for everybody. And also the Begleitpanzer 57, well, it's over-tiered, isn't it, despite the added rocket right now, right? Then there is a very interesting idea from Liberty or Death. What is your opinion on splitting Germany at higher tiers? A split between East and West Germany, where the West would be using Leopard 1s, 2s, modified M48s, M41s, and East would have T64, T55, PT76, etc. I think this would be great for the matchmaking at high tiers if they put West Germany with the other NATO countries and East Germany with the Russians. Interesting idea, especially since it seems like German tanks get spammed even at higher tiers. If you look at the matchmaker, and sometimes it's really fun to fight German tanks, and I think at RB this would be a great income of seal clubbing other Germans with your Germans. But honestly, think about the insane grind and the insane difficulties to do it right now, and to bring all in the new tanks, and you know, just the insane amount of RP costs make it practically impractical. Then also, if we just get one light tank, I'm not quite sure how good this would be in practice. It's an interesting idea, but practically I don't see too much use for it. Especially, where do you actually split them, and then exactly where the split begins? The matchmaker would be completely broken. That's what I see as a big problem. A question regarding jets comes from Yana Abramian. Adjust to jets on a free-to-play account. Should I reach the Vampire, Meteor or Canberra? What would you recommend? Thank you. Well, if you look into the British plane tech tree, I think that the very first Meteor teaches you a lot of bad habits. It's a turn fighter. It turns and burns and is actually pretty nice at it, has good acceleration, but has very, very limited top speed for a jet. So it's a bit like just other Griffin Spitfire, really. The Vampire FB5 with the battle rating of 7.3 has a much higher speed, and is also pretty mobile, and has a bit more versatility when it comes to ground pounding as ground sporters, with in theory 2 1,000 pound bombs and or 8 RP3 rockets. But you know, CAS is not that important anymore. A really unique plane is the Attacker FB1, and this is really the big counter to the Meteor Mark III. It's not very maneuverable, but it's fast. And the wing mounted 20mm, well, I'm more used to them than the central mounted on the Meteors, because the higher Meteors don't really feel that nice in my opinion. The Canberras, maybe the second one with the cannons, but the first one is a bit of a waste of time in my opinion. So at least that's my opinion when it comes to the British jets. So Bruno Mikan asks, what do you think, will War Thunder come to mind and add new game modes apart from the World War, and what do you think about the World War? Well, the World War mode seems to be pretty boring, and it's in its practical alpha state. I never played it, but I know some people that did, and they were really disappointed. I think again there is a lot of potential, a lot of possibilities that could be used and should be worked on, but again it's the typical gaijin fashion. Great idea, bad execution of that idea. We actually don't need that many new game modes. I think we just need to refine and improve the current existing ones, and especially for tanks we need to ease that stock grind, and generally the income needs to be at least 50% higher, because what we have here in game is a joke where I have an outstanding game with a premium tank and I get a lot of income, and I could do the same or even better with a non-premium normal tech tree plane in RRB with a half decent match. So that tells you a lot about the state of the tank grind. So that's actually it for me today with the Duck Talks. I think I have answered the most questions, and the other ones I have answered in previous episodes or with rambling about the entire video so forth. So again, if you have any questions, let me know in the comment sections. Now after 1.5 hours of talking, I just have to cut it. I'm exhausted again. I have to still play on a bit the naval testing stuff and make probably a video about that. So again, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more and hear more, and as usual we'll see each other in the skies and on the battlefields of War Thunder.